really put this into language, but we're all going to struggle onward and find it fascinating anyway, I know. And what happened with me was noticing, not that this is about what happens to anybody, this is not really about experiences, but when you have them, you may as well report them, because they are part of this, typically, not always. But I realized I was looking for something, and that somehow that stopped making sense to me, to be looking for something. And instead it came from, oh, no wonder you can't find it. You're it. You're the you're the looker. And so, and from there came just an ever more trusting. And as I began to trust more that I wasn't going crazy, that I wasn't under threat, that any of this stuff that can come up to a crazed human being, which is what we had at that moment. Then there was more of a relaxation, not with what is, but as what is. And for me, there was a lot of relief to find out that I wasn't God, but it was by myself, so to speak. And but there was a lot more relief in finding out that that this was not about a Fred. I didn't have to run this. I didn't have to get this right. It was already right. It was already done. And that same thing happened on the day of that surgery. That was the sense of, because I'm trying to get it right. I'm trying to get recovering from surgery right.
Yeah. Which means you're getting it wrong.
Yeah, and right, exactly. And you can only get it as it is. And and the giving up to that, and just going, oh, well, I see why you're crazy as hell. For one thing. But it was an experience that I would not, because my experience turned out to be a particularly poor one, post-surgical, immediately in post-surgery. I mean, there was and for a number of days there were a lot of difficulties with the body and the mind and everything, where they literally thought that they had lost me. And I didn't think they'd lost me, but I didn't know what the hell I was, so I wasn't concerned about it anyway. But there were a lot of difficulties that don't occur ordinarily after surgeries. And so it was pretty scary until I realized that I didn't have to get it right. I just didn't have to do anything. The awareness was very, very keen on the fact that it was awareness, and that part of awareness was awaring this stuff, using awaring as like a verb, right? Like and but it wasn't a coming to know of this or a coming to know of that. It was like a mat that you would weave, and you have to, it's underwater weaving, because you have to keep all the weaving so flexible. And that's what was going on as the mind was attempting to rebuild, because it had pretty suspicious ground over here.
Right.
In fact, on my very best day, if I was to tell somebody my experience, they'd still just put me away. So it was very different. And then there came that moment when I recognized, well, no, you can't find it, you're it. And I didn't even know what that meant at that moment. It wasn't like it was a blast open moment, but I didn't know what it's a blast open moment to. I think the biggest key is the fact that out of these events, there's almost always, there's something that arises, not just to the top, but above the top, that's slightly different from other things. I remember one of a Kundalini experience where I recognized where there was that there was no center. There was no center to anything. There was just this, whatever that was. There was no name for it. And then this time it was a little less dramatic than that, but it was, but not much. And it was an older and wiser guy that had that experience. But there's so much trust now. I recognized that I didn't have to find it or find out something or figure out anything. That all I really needed to do was trust. And I just needed to trust in the universe, really. I don't know how else to put it.
It sounds like letting go, or not an absence of reaction, of that need, of that, what I was saying, that kind of, that reaction to the no thing.
Yeah, that's a better description than mine is, than mine was, really. The absence of reaction, because my experience with these things is that the emphasis here, the emphasis is always on something. Like here we are talking about, right? Yeah. We're always talking about something, whether it's a cup of tea or Bob's latest spiritual experience that's going to fascinate all of us before we, go home and forget it. And to have recognize that I didn't even have to let go because it wasn't mine to begin with. I didn't have it. You can't let go of what you don't have.
Yeah. There's
right?
you can't let go.